Welcome to my channel. My name is Nika. This is a place where I talk about all things pop culture while I work on some crochet projects, some other crafty projects, and you're free to do the same. What I want to talk about today was the recent news about how BTS is going to be going on hiatus until 2025. This is to ensure that all the members in the group get to finish their military service, which is something that's mandatory in South Korea. More specifically though, I think what I wanted to talk about was the reaction to this news and just in general the way that this group of grown men are treated. I wanted to talk about parasocial relationships and I guess the overall general infantilization of K-pop idols and East Asian idols in general. I think it's really easy to forget that this group of idols are all grown men, like well into their 20s, pushing 30. And while a large part of that does have to do with like the whole idol industry in South Korea in the first place, like, you know, the talent agencies, the labels, the K-pop industry as a whole, I think it's also important to acknowledge the role that the fan base, the ARMYs, play in what we're gonna be talking about today. It's definitely nothing new what I'm gonna say, and it's definitely nothing like, you know, particularly profound or anything. People have been talking about this for ages and are gonna continue to talk about it, but I figured just since in light of the recent news, it's definitely something that's worth discussing. So without further ado, today we're gonna be talking about BTS, parasocial relationships, and we're gonna be making a cat ear sack hat, which I'm very excited about. So let's just get into it. So for those of you who are going to be crocheting with me, I'm going to be using a pattern by ABOC Studio. I'm going to put the link in the description box if you wanted to follow along like verbatim, but you by all means do not have to. You can do whatever you want. We're also going to be alternating between two different colors today. If that's something that you needed to learn how to do or needed a little bit more help with, I also put another video in the description box. It's not specifically about switching between two different colors, but it's the one that I used and it's the one that helped me the most. It's the one that helps me make the most seamless color changes with my yarn. So if that's something that you would also like to learn more about, I put a link in the description to Brittany Alice Crochet's video. Okay, so on the off chance that you might not know, BTS is probably the biggest boy band in the world right now. They're even getting compared to the Beatles, which is not something I'm just making up. This is a CNN article that right off the bat, opening line, just compared them to the Beatles. So not something I'm just making up. It is real, I promise. So BTS consists of 7 members. I have to put my work down for this because I'm gonna lose count. There's Jungkook, V, RM, J-Hope, Jimin, Suga, and Jin. And they've quite literally taken the world by storm. I don't think that's an exaggeration. They broke the record for the most viewed YouTube video premiere with the release of Dynamite. They're also the first South Korean act to get a #1 song on the Billboard Top 100, which is very exciting. I think that was also with Dynamite as well. They got 300 million fans to vote for them in the Billboard Music Awards in 2017, and they won, and they became the top social artist of that year, which I think beforehand it was like Selena Gomez, Ariana Grande, like pretty well-established figures in American pop music. So having an all-Korean act get that award, it's pretty crazy in my opinion. They've spoken at the UN, and they've spoken at the White House with Joe Biden, which I don't even want to get into that. It's just so bizarre. That's a whole other video. That's a whole other video right there. Personally though, I think one of the craziest things about BTS is I think you could argue that they're one of the biggest acts and one of the main acts responsible for bringing K-pop into mainstream Western media and mainstream Western culture, you know, bringing it on the radar. I think beforehand the closest thing we've ever had to that was Gangnam Style by Psy, which like I don't even know if you can compare the two. I don't think you can, which I think further proves the point. I don't think that we've ever had anything like this before. They're one of the main acts responsible for this K-pop boom that we're seeing. They're not the only one, but they're one of the biggest ones, one of the main ones. I would also like to preface this by saying I'm in no way making fun of BTS fans. I'm as big of an ARMY as they come. Hold on. Listen. I got the BTS gum, okay? I've got the BTS pop socket. I've got the little BTS Band-Aid box with Jimin on it. I have little teeny tiny keychains of V and J-Hope from the Dynamite music video. My phone wallpaper is V from BTS, and then when you tap it, it changes in between different photos of B from BTS. BTS was in my top 5 most played artists of 2022. So if I was making fun of BTS fans, I think I would be in no place to judge. That's just so rude. I would never. If I was calling being a BTS fan problematic, that would make me problematic. But then what would that make me sitting here making this video talking about this? You know what I mean? What is problematic though is how patronizing and infantilizing that their fans can be towards their biases sometimes. So the first of the entire group to start their mandatory military service was Jin. He turned 30 this past year, and at the time of recording this video, he just freshly started his military service. So I think this is a big reason why I actually thought of even talking about this in the first place today, because of the reactions of the armies on Twitter and TikTok specifically, but also Instagram, and the way I've been absolutely bombarded with these reactions.
I should not be crying because I just got my lashes done. But how is the military gonna know that Jin can't have garlic or potatoes? Tay needs 4 mattresses to sleep, and JK needs banana milk every fucking morning. And Yoongi needs to sleep, and Namjoon needs his books, and Hobie's afraid of bugs and loud noises. Jimin needs all 7 members. How can they do this to us?
You know, they're calling Jin a baby, and they're commenting on how cute he is. They're posting edits of him and his bread cheeks. I don't know what that means. Maybe I'm out of the loop. Maybe I'm not as big of a BTS fan as I said I am. I mean, they're praying for his safety, praying for his safe return. I don't know, it's just kind of insane to me. Okay, I just dropped my phone, so I was gonna say I'm just looking at my notes. I think that's a sign I'm not supposed to look at my notes. I also have to measure around my head to see if oh, it fits! I'm so happy. I've been working on this foundation chain for the past, hour. I'm very happy. So I don't really want to sit here and, debate the morals and the ethics of mandatory conscription, especially for a country that I don't even live in. How would I know? Military service is hard. From what I understand, it's grueling, it's taxing, both physically and mentally, but it's also military training, so it's definitely not going to be easy. Again, I'm not really here to debate or anything. I'm more just here to say, it is what it is, and what it is mandatory for Korean men between the ages of 18 and 35 to serve some time in the military.
I come to say goodbye.
Where are you going?
Just on a little trip.
Charlie, will I ever see you again?
Sure you will, kid. You know, goodbyes aren't forever.
Then, goodbye, Charlie. I love you.
Yeah. I love you too.
I just think I think that's why I found the reaction to this news so absurd, because apply the reaction of Jin, a 30-year-old man going to the army, to him doing something like jury duty, and you get something like, Jin, my baby, his red cheeks, he's too sensitive. He can't be on the jury duty. He's an empath, he's a Sagittarius. This news affects him deeply. I promise you, I'm sure he can handle himself. And I'm almost certain he'll be okay. And this sort of reaction, this behavior is gonna go on for the next 2 years or so, one by one after another, as all the members get enlisted into the army. I really don't mean to say that this type of treatment is something that only happens in idol culture, in K-pop culture, and with East Asian celebrity culture only. In fact, I'm certain that a lot of big figures in Western pop culture have been subjected to the exact same treatment before as well, at one point or another. I think the reason why I find it so important to talk about, though, is after taking into consideration that historically East Asian men and East Asian women, especially in the West, have been depicted and portrayed in like this same sort of way, this infantilized, almost like dehumanizing sort of way. You know, historically, East Asian women have been perceived as docile or submissive and depicted that way, and East Asian men have been seen as unmanly, you know, like they're not tall enough, their jawlines aren't chiseled enough, they've been seen as effeminate at some point or another as well. And I just feel like, and I really hope this is not reaching and like trying to bridge a gap between two concepts that don't coexist, but I think that this reaction of seeing grown men doing things that adults do is just another form of this in our modern information and technology age. It's pretty common among K-pop groups, especially online. Like I've seen it on Twitter, I've seen it on Instagram and TikTok a lot too. The people calling their faves like pure and like cute and adorable and they're so baby, like that's my baby. I've seen it also a lot when, again, these idols who are grown adults like are having trouble speaking English or like remembering an English word or something, and it's like, oh, it's so adorable how he can't remember how to say this word, or like it's so adorable how he misunderstood the question. It's so silly. I've also seen it when idols come out with a dark concept or like a dark era, an edgier era, after they've spent a significant amount of time with like pastels and lots of pastel colors. I don't know, maybe you could say I'm looking a little too deep into it and I'm totally reaching between two concepts that do not go hand in hand together at all. But I don't know, I think just the behavior I've seen online and like the reactions I've seen online kind of got the wheels turning, kind of got me starting to think about this a little bit more. I'll also be getting into it more in the next section, but it's not like the blame is to be placed entirely on K-pop fans, like the fan base. It is not at all. K-pop agencies, the talent agencies, the record labels are so astronomically far from being exempt from any responsibility or accountability. They are galaxies, they're millenniums away from being absolutely exempt from any of this stuff. In fact, I think they enable it even more with the things that they do and the heavy surveillance and heavy like control that they have over their talent. There's something widely referred to in the K-pop industry as slave contracts. I heard a lot of talk about it in the later half of the 2010s, so I'm not sure if that term is still as prevalent as it was at the time. I'm sure it is, but I just want to be like as transparent as possible about it. But it's essentially referring to the contracts that young and upcoming talent sign when they get started with an agency. They put in so much effort and get very, very little in return, little to nothing, and they have little to no control over any aspect of their life. Super mundane things like what they eat, what they can talk about, who they can associate with, who they can't associate with. All that stuff is heavily monitored and heavily surveilled by their bigger agency or the agency that's in charge of them and it manages them. And of course it's easy and it's fair to say, you know, like, well, you know what you're getting into. If you don't like it, then why would you get into it? Which is fair. It's a totally fair criticism and a totally valid point. But I think it's also important to note the fact that a lot of these idols and a lot of these groups debut before they even hit 18. So we're talking 15, 16-year-olds who are signing contracts that dictate the agency that they have in their lives. You know, I've even seen some idols at the age of 12 or 13 when they first debut. So it's hard to tell someone whose brain hasn't fully developed yet to take into account their agency, you know? Anyways, we put all those things together and I think that they all contribute to the overall phenomenon that is parasocial relationships and their prevalence in K-pop and idol culture. So hopefully you've been able to gather at least like a little bit from the way we've already talked about it and everything that we've already gone over. But K-pop fans, and ARMYs in particular, are absolutely known for their unrelenting loyalty. They're hyper defensive, they're overprotective of their favorites and their biases. They're the textbook definition of devoted. They would go to the absolute ends of the earth and back to support any single thing that their biases do. You may even recall in back of like May 2020, a Dallas police station launched this app called iWatch, which was stupid, and its main goal was to surveil and arrest and incriminate anybody who was involved in the quote illegal Black Lives Matter protests that were going on. When the K-pop community on Twitter, when the ARMYs in particular got a hold of this info, they absolutely flooded that godforsaken app with their own fan cams that they made, which fan cams are edits that fans have made of their idols, of their favorite idols and their favorite groups when they're performing live. That's it. They absolutely flooded this police app with their own fan cams that they've made, rendering the app useless within the span of 24 hours. This app was shut down because it wouldn't work. It would not function because they flooded it with so many fan cams. They broke a police app. They broke a police app in the matter of 24 hours. They are an absolutely unstoppable force when they have a cause that they believe in. They're a unit, they're an absolute powerhouse, and I think people underestimate the amount of power and the amount of influence that they have on what's trending, what's not trending, on algorithms. But this doesn't just happen like overnight, this absolute devotion, this literally breaking police apps. But this does not just happen overnight, this devotion, this undying devotion to a group. It doesn't just form overnight. It is a result of meticulous planning and very, very hyper-specific work and focus on making sure that idols prioritize making their fans feel like they have a connection with each and every single one of them, thus resulting in a parasocial relationship, which is like a totally one-sided relationship that the media consumer feels like they have with a media personality. And honestly, the whole idea of parasocial relationships in K-pop culture has been talked about for like a while. It's been talked about for a long time. So again, it's nothing really new that I'm saying. I just think it's newsworthy because of recent events. But I've seen it talked about a lot in the BTS forums, on Reddit, on Twitter, and like K-pop communities in general online. And I just think that the way that the industry operates encourages and enables this type of behavior and this type of thought process. Because if you think about it, these industries require and encourage their artists, their talent, to continue to keep up this facade for their fans that they have a connection with each and every single one of them, and that they know and they see every single one of them. I think this is why companies like JYP Entertainment, which is the group behind Twice and the entertainment group behind GOT7, which are other pretty huge K-pop groups as well, they have a 3-year ban on dating. So when the talent signs with their agency, they're not allowed to date anyone for 3 years. Even after the contract is done, though, it seems like dating is pretty highly discouraged anyway. Like on top of the busy schedules that the idols have, like it also just looks like it's seen as a distraction towards bigger goals. Unsurprisingly, up until recently too, idols weren't even really allowed to drink in public either. They weren't allowed to be seen drinking. This has been a really recent thing that has started to die down. But it's surprising because of how prevalent drinking is in like South Korean nightlife. It's a big deal. It's a big part of that culture, and idols aren't even allowed to partake in that, at least publicly, or else they run the risk of tarnishing their image, their public image, and their fans' perceptions of them. I think a specific example that has to do with BTS, because we're talking about them today, is the youngest member, Jungkook, and how he's required to hide his tattoos, or his tattoos keep getting edited out of photo shoots. They get edited out of like music videos, whatever. And I think it's because the entertainment company that they're under, thinks that it'll tarnish or at least change his fans' image of him in their heads. So I don't know, it might be ignorant to assume that the idols have no say in their public image and how they're perceived by their fans, because I've heard online too that there are some companies that let their idols kind of have free reign over the clothes that they wear and like their image and like what they get to sing and what they get to talk about. There's also companies like JYP Entertainment that don't, so who knows. What I do know is that it's totally unfair to place the blame entirely on the fan base when everybody behind the scenes and everybody at the top of the chain is working tirelessly to help foster this sort of thinking, this sort of development, and this sort of relationship. So I hope I get the point across that this is absolutely not coming from a malicious place or a place where I'm trying to attack anybody who likes BTS. Again, do you know how much money I would give to make uninterrupted eye contact with V from BTS for 3 seconds? Or Jaeyoung from NCT 127? If I had the money, if I had the funds, if I had a disposable income, I would own every single one of BTS's albums in a box set with the little photo cards. I'd be looking at them one by one, like, you know, if I had the money. Absolutely not coming from a place of hate. It's coming from a K-pop enjoyer, a K-pop consumer, and somebody who loves feeling like they're part of something that's bigger than they could possibly imagine. And I think that's one of the positives that comes from being part of a fan base like BTS or a K-pop group. It's knowing that something that you love is shared all the way across the world. You have something in common with millions of people all over the planet. It's really not all negative. It's genuinely heartwarming. It's something that's, when you think about it, absolutely mind-blowing. Something you'll never understand the magnitude of, because there are so many people that have that same shared interest as you. It's a beautiful thing, but I don't think that means that there's nothing that we can fix or change about it as well, you know? That's it for me. Thanks so much for watching. I would show you the progress that I made on my project, but I really, I didn't make much. I have like 2 stripes, so hopefully if you've been following along with one of your own projects or making a crochet cat ear hat, you've at least gone a little farther than me. But I hope you enjoyed what you heard, and I hope you enjoyed what we discussed, and I hope you have something to think about as you finish up your crochet projects or go about your day. I hope you enjoyed. All my sources are linked in the description box below, as well as any of the materials that I used that I tried to find online. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.